How y'all doing tonight here at MAGFest, day one? All right, cool. So we're going to do a panel called Running Your Own Local Concerts While Having Fun. My name's Kent Ward. I run a thing called Ongaku Overdrive out of Orlando, Florida. Oh, there you go. We got the theme song and everything. So the idea of this, we're going to talk about how to start running your own concerts with video game music, to record all that in your hometown, how to book acts and all that good stuff. So I'm guessing everyone's here because they want to do their own kind of concerts with acts that you see here at MAGFest in their own city, right? Good, that's what we're doing here. We'll just play out. All right, enough of that. All right, so Ongaku Overdrive, you can find us pretty much everywhere. I got business cards here if you guys want to take them at the end, but here's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover getting started, why, and also why not. Because some people get into this for the wrong reasons, and others get into it for good reasons. So we're going to cover both aspects. We're going to talk about how to book acts and venues, how you contact both parties, how you make things work, how you arrange things, which is very important. We're also going to talk about budgeting and tech writers. We're also going to talk about promoting events, how to get the word out, how to let people know that, hey, your thing is happening, and also how to get them excited about it so they want to actually come out. We're going to talk about what you do day of show, because that's incredibly important. And of course, once the show is over, how do you grow to your audience so your next shows could do better? So we're going to talk about that. And most importantly, how to have fun while doing it. But I'm going to talk about who I am. My name is Kent Ward. I've been running Ongaku Overdrive since 2013. We've done over 20 events with various video game bands, chiptune acts, nerdcore acts, guys like Mega Ran, Arm Cannon, Bit Brigade, Richie Branson, Dynamo Cannon, Professor Shy Guy, etc., etc. You can actually check all that out on our website of who we've had. And I also host a podcast called The Nerd Music Meltdown, where I interview all these various acts. We have over 40 episodes that you can listen to on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Apple Music, all that good stuff. So you get to find out more about these great acts that we have, and also acts that are here at MAGFest. I'm also working with CEO Gaming. I don't know if you guys have heard of that event. It's an FGC event in Florida, run by that debated guy. I'm in charge of their panel programming. And I used to work on staff for MAGFest for Orlando and MegaCon on their scheduling for their event programming, and also ran an anime club called Propeller Anime from 2006 to 2019. And by day, I'm a software engineer. So my event experience for conventions tied into what I ended up doing with Ongaku Overdrive. So between being a professional by day, but also having an event experience where I interact with anime fans and video game fans on a regular basis, made it possible for me to build up a skill set so I can actually run these kind of events, though they're music themed, you know. So that's who I am and my background. But anyways, let's get started. Why are we doing this? So there's a lot of different reasons. I'm assuming you're all fans of like all the acts here at MAGFest. You want to bring them to your own hometown, right? I feel the same exact way. When I actually started doing shows in Orlando, Florida, there's a thing called Nerdapalooza. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but like shortly before Nerdapalooza ended, I had this idea of like, well, I'm doing all this stuff with an anime club and also the anime convention, but it felt like Nerdapalooza wasn't really reaching out to the anime crowd. It felt like to them, we'll do all these other nerdums like comic books and video games and whatnot, but anime, they can stay over there. And I was like, well, that's pretty messed up, because we have all these great acts that would love to perform in front of a different audience, or maybe even a larger audience, because at the time, the anime conventions were outdrawing Nerdapalooza. Still would be if that was the case, but my thought process was, well, if they're not going to reach out to the anime fans, then I will. So that's why I started it up. And I felt like if I brought out acts like Richie Branson, Mega Ran, Random Encounter, etc., who were prominent acts at the time, and in some cases still are, the anime fans would dig it, and it turned out I was right when I started doing shows. So if you want to showcase the kind of cool acts you see at this event, then awesome. That's a good reason to do it, because that brings them over to your people, because not everyone can afford to be at MAGFest. Like a lot of people, there's like maybe about 30 of us from Orlando that come out, but most people can't afford to come out to this event, but they can go out and see a show in their local town, which is great. So that's a real good reason to do that. One, it also provides a positive environment for your nerds, like for your fellow nerds. So for example, everyone's having a good time here at MAGFest. Why not have a miniature version of that back where you live? You know, that's a great thing. Also a great way to give back to your community. And you can also form some cool friendships. Like I've made a ton of friends running Ongaku Overdrive and working various events, not only performers, but fans and venue owners and whatnot. Made all kinds of cool relationships that have gotten me to some really cool places that I'm not really going to talk about in this panel, but cool things happen when you do good stuff for other people, you know what I mean? And you'll have to force yourself to develop some skills that you didn't have before. Like, I wasn't a podcaster when I started, but I made a podcast because I wanted to promote the acts that I was featuring and get their story out to other people. I'm going to show some of the videos I put together. I was never a video editor. I'm a computer programmer, but I had to learn how to do that in order to make cool videos to get people excited about the shows. I didn't know much about graphics design, but I had to teach myself that as well. And sometimes you got to learn those skills because you don't have the budget to pay actual people that know that stuff instead. So some of these things you're going to be doing on your own because that's a great way to save a lot of money. But you like video game music, you like nerdcore and chiptune, so sharing that's really cool. But don't do it if you want to make money. If you're looking to make this a job, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to make a living making nerd music shows happen. You're not going to become some kind of internet local celebrity if you make stuff happen. I've seen people actually try to do that back where we live, and they fizzle out. And some people look at it as an opportunity to do other things. So we're not going to cover that. And if you're looking to start MAGFest in your hometown, I don't know how to do that, so ask MAGFest how to do that. But here's some things to consider. You should probably start small, and you should also probably keep in mind what's going on in your city already. Are there a bunch of anime conventions or Comic-Cons? Are there acts like MC Chris or Protoman already touring through there? Is there some kind of an established fan base? Do you guys have stuff like video game stores, arcades, comic book stores, where people are frequenting, people that you can interact with and talk to? If so, that's going to make things a lot easier. Are there colleges in your hometown? Because colleges are filled with all kinds of young nerds with disposable income and free time, which means they can come out to your shows. That's really important. And more importantly, when you're putting together your shows, some of ththese acts were already established, like Mega Man and Protoman. They cost a lot more now than when they started. And they're probably not going to come to your first set of shows. So build to that and take advantage of the fact that you might already have some acts that are in your area that can drive out to your show. Like, every state has some kind of video game, nerdcore, chiptune acts that are looking to play shows, and they need someone who's going to put in the work to get the word out and make it all happen. Promoter's job is very important. I've learned that over the last year because some of the shows that have happened in Orlando that weren't mine, like that were maybe run by a venue, didn't do so well. And that's because someone is not out there doing the work that needs to be done, you know? But the other things to consider when you put on these shows, I had this mindset early on, my first couple of years, that I needed to be just like an anime-themed version of Nerdapalooza, where I have like a bunch of acts all day, and then I'm going to get a hotel and have a weekend-long convention and all that. But people back where you live may not have that kind of stamina. Like, I remember doing these long shows with like maybe 8 acts, 10 acts, 12 acts, where people weren't able to stay the whole time because they don't have the energy. But maybe a 3 to 5 act show is a lot more realistic. People can stay out for a few hours, so keep that in mind. And do you plan to have other content besides music? Are you going to have game setups, tabletop gaming, some kind of art thing where people sell their art or show off their art, or vendors? Those are other aspects that you have to consider as well, but that's extra credit. We don't have time to fit that into an hour. And it's going to take time to build your audience. Like, not everyone's going to show up overnight. Maybe you'll start out with 30 people or 40 people and start growing that to 100, then 200. It takes time. And it's going to put a lot of stress on you. There's times where I have breakdowns, anxiety, because I feel like, oh man, nobody cares about what I'm going to do. I had like a Monday before a show a couple years ago, the ticket sales weren't looking too high, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to lose all my money. I'm going to be like bankrupt, broke. Then like the Friday before the show, everyone buys their tickets. But that Monday, I was freaking out. So, and also early on, you might be losing money. This is kind of an investment for like early on. You're going to have to invest in a lot of things to build up what you're doing, and then eventually maybe you'll make some profit, or maybe things will even out and it will work out with consistency. So let's talk about the beginning. You're going to have an idea to have a show. You might have a date in mind. You might have places in mind. You might have acts in mind. So let's talk about all that. So here's some fine acts. I just did a show last November called Warriors of Light that featured a ton of amazing people. Night of the Round, the Returners, the Sense of Erdrick, Mega Man, and some other folks joined on stage. So I had some acts in mind when I was going to book this show. So when you're booking an act, and I actually was at a chiptune panel earlier that talked about this, don't think too much about how cool they sound online. You want to consider things like, will they be great in front of actual people? And MAGFest is a great litmus test for that. We have all kinds of different setups here. The main stage, of course, MAGFest, Chip Space, the Belvedere Ballroom. So almost everyone in our community is here this weekend. So it's a great place to scout acts that you might be interested in and start talking to them about what you want to do back where you live, right? But you can see how how people are reacting to them. Like if people are excited, that's good. But if people are quiet and they're like, or like the crowd's thinning out, that's usually a sign that is not going to be something that people are going to enjoy. And I'll talk more about that when it gets to the day of show. But of course, they have to be available on dates that you're considering. And this could be a back and forth with the venue as well. So when I put together a show, I'm talking to the venue, but I'm also talking to acts, and I'm trying to find a common date where everything aligns. Now, some acts, I won't be able to get who I want, and I'll have to move on to the next set of acts. So, for example, I did a Metroid show several years ago to celebrate the 30th anniversary, right? Well, my lineup for that show ended up being Bit Brigade, Super Guitar Bros, Magitech, and Ben Briggs, but that was not the original lineup I had envisioned. I was actually trying to get Metroid Metal and Samus on the show, because obviously it's Metroid, so that makes sense, but those guys were not available on any of the dates I was trying to hit. And I was trying to get it near a time where Metroid is having its 30th anniversary, so I'm like, all right, that's not going to work, so what am I going to do? So Bit Brigade, obviously, they do that Metroid speedrun concert as one of the games they feature, so that's a great backup plan. That was actually the first time I did a show in Bit Brigade. And then Super Guitar Bros, well, they have a bunch of Nintendo songs, and one of them is a Metroid song, so that fit with the theme I wanted to do. And we'll talk about the difference between theme shows and like just having a hodgepodge of different acts, what works and what doesn't. But anyways, make sure they're available. Make sure they actually promote the events they perform at. So this is great. Go to an act's social media. If they've been booked for shows like MAGFest or PAX or any local anime con, and you go to animecons.com to see who's been on guest lists for various conventions, you can actually check their social media and be like, hey, have they ever posted that they play at these shows? And I've seen acts flat out not post what shows they're playing at ever. Not like, hey, I'm playing at a show this week, or I'm playing at this show tonight, or hey, thank you guys for coming out to the show I did Saturday or whatever. Skip those acts, because they're not going to help you out too much, because this could be a team effort between you, the venue, and the performers, because you all need to be successful, and reaching out to all your different followers and fan bases that you've accumulated in the area is going to lead to a very successful show. Most performers understand that, and sometimes you have to nudge them a little bit, like, hey, can you make this post that you're going to be at the show? Can you share this graphic, this poster, this event page, this video? And most of the time, they're usually pretty cool about it. Or they can work out a promotional strategy with you if they think they know better, and that's fine too. Of course, you want them to kill it on stage. Talked about that earlier, because if they play in front of a crowd and they suck, then that makes your show look bad. And then the most important thing, make sure they don't cost more than they draw. So that means if they need to be flown out and their flight costs $300, they need to be put in a hotel room and their hotel costs $100, and they want a $100, $200 guarantee. That means, let's say average show costs $10 a ticket if you're starting out, right? That means you need to sell at least 60 tickets to cover that act. Is that act going to draw 60 people? If so, great. If not, no, move right along. That's really important. If you have local acts, you could probably work out percentage deals. I've done that before in the past as well, where like, hey, after we pay off this venue, you get 10% or whatever. That works out pretty well, because that means it's harder to lose money when you do those kind of shows. And of course, check their social media to make sure they're not conducting themselves in ways that will embarrass you, the event, and pretty much everyone involved. Because let's say you have an act where like 3 acts are great folks and they're doing a great job online, getting the word out and all that. Then you have one act that's like either acting a fool on social media, saying things that has people upset, because cancel culture is real right now. Or let's say at the show they're messed up on something, they're inebriated, and they fall down on stage or puke on stage or trip a wire and just cause the whole power to go out. And I have a performer in my head when I'm saying all that, because it's happened before. You don't want those kind of acts, because it's going to embarrass you, it's going to embarrass the community, and it's going to make what you're doing look like a joke. So make sure you get acts that are going to take the opportunity that you're presenting to them seriously, because you're putting your money on the line, you're putting your time on the line, you're working for them. So make sure they pay it forward and work with you, and don't do anything that will embarrass you. We mentioned travel and lodging, so if you're planning to fly out acts, and I recommend not flying out a bunch of acts early on. Maybe you do one solo act to start off with as your headliner, and it makes sense because there'll be an act that people want to see, right? But flights are expensive and they go up each year. And I've noticed that with this, I don't want to get political, but I noticed with the current administration, the flights have gotten really expensive. So like Megaran, for example, when I would have first booked Megaran for shows like 6-7 years ago, flights from Phoenix, Arizona would be like $300, $350, but most recently at Warriors of Light, flights were around $450. I'm like, damn, what the hell happened? But like, I've noticed that with various acts, but that's like the one that stood in my mind recently. So keep that in mind. If you can try to book separate flights where like instead of a round trip, you book one flight with one airline and another flight with another airline. That can sometimes be cheaper. Also keep in mind baggage fees. Performers are not only bringing their clothes for the weekend, they're bringing their instruments, they're bringing their merch. And that means certain airlines will have different things. Southwest is cool because they'll let you bring in 2 checked bags for free. Delta's pretty reliable when it comes to having, if performers like the Guitar Bros, for example, they want to use Delta because they can have their guitars brought on as carry-on because they don't trust putting it in cargo because what if their guitars get damaged? Then that would screw up not only their chance of playing at the show you haven't booked for, but future shows. And obviously drum kits aren't going to be on an airplane, so you have to figure out where you're going to rent your drum kit from. There's various local places that you can rent instruments from, like Sam Ash, Guitar Center, etc., that rent equipment, so contact them ahead to find out what their rates are. Or you might know someone that's in a local band that you can borrow drums from as well. I've done that in the past, and other instruments as well. Of course, if they're flying out, maybe they'll want to crash on your couch if they're a solo act, but if it's a group of people and you can't fit them into your house or living room for whatever reason, they're probably going to have to put them in a hotel. What I recommend is have hotels that are by an airport because most of those hotels near the airport offer free shuttle to and from the airport, which is great for bands because that means all their equipment can transport as well. So if you got like a tiny like Kia, you can't fit a whole band in that, and you probably can't fit all their equipment as well. But if they have an airport shuttle, they totally can. But if you don't have that option, get some friends to help you pick up people. I did that with the Megas one year. It was a tough fit, but it was me and a dude with a van, and we just managed to fit everyone in and got them to their hotel rooms. Let's see. And of course, read reviews on Hotels.com. Get into the Megas. There was a long period of time where I thought Hotels.com ranked everything out of 5. So when I saw hotels in Orlando for like 3, I thought it was like 3 out of 5. And then I found out later on that they're actually 3 out of 10. So I got some complaints early on from various acts about being put up in crack motels. And I didn't know, but I learned that just put them where I live, putting them by the airport is actually pretty good. The hotels in that area are fairly good, but pretty much anything that's 7 or higher on Hotels.com will be acceptable by the acts that you book. And that's if you're flying out acts and putting up. Like I said, if you're starting out, I would recommend starting local and moving outward. So will that even show up? I guess not. But anyways, I blacked out parts. I don't want to reveal the names, but usually when I contact the acts, I start by email. And finding emails from the various bands you want to book is fairly easy. They all have it listed either on social media or their Facebook or their Bandcamp, et cetera, et cetera. And I just let them know that, hey, if someone gave me their contact information, I'll let them know that, hey, so-and-so let me know to contact you here. I run Ongaku Overdrive. We're out of Orlando, Florida. We have a show in mind, and this is our audience, and we're looking to bring you down on these dates. And we understand you're from this part of the country. We can fly you out, put you up in a hotel. We need to know what else you need. That way I get to find out what their rate is based on what the show is. We can negotiate from there. Sometimes they're willing to lower if they understand that, hey, our audience is not as big as MAGFest. Some acts I've talked to have wanted thousands of dollars to play at our 300-person venue in Orlando, and I'm like, no, that's not going to work. We can do this much, and they either say yes or no, and if they say no, I move on. But I let them know pretty kindly and professionally that, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. Let me know what you want to do. And I did this also for Warriors of Light. This is like someone I actually talked to at MAGFest last year. Like, hey, this is the show we have in mind. Here's what our Zelda show the previous year looked like. And I had a link to just various photos that we had up for our gallery. And I just let them know, hey, this is what we talked about. What else do you guys need? And pretty easy stuff like that. Bands are pretty good at responding quickly because they're looking for shows. And I don't know, just be very professional. Don't be demanding. Don't be bossy. If they don't respond right away, like maybe wait a few days. Be like, just send a follow-up email. If they still don't respond, Some acts aren't really good at following their social media, so maybe you need to just tag them on Twitter, like, "Hey, I sent you an email about being at a show. Can you check it?" And then they'll actually check in and respond. I've had to do that a few times over the years, but now I just have everyone's phone number, so it's easy now. Booking a venue. Booking a venue is harder than booking an act. I actually had some struggles lately with a show I had to drop that I was planning on doing, but not going to do. But anyways, the ideal venue should have these attributes. And there's a lot of attributes a venue needs to have. Of course, it needs to be available on the dates that you're thinking. Weekends are hard if you're in a big city because there's a lot of national touring acts that will come to a big city, and those tours can be booked 6 months, 4 months, 5 months in advance. So when you're booking a show, depending on the size of your city, you might want to have a date in mind 4 months out. Then start contacting the venues to be contacting the suitable venues that you want to be hey, these are the dates that we're thinking. Are you guys available? And Fridays and Saturdays are incredibly hard because those are the hot days that people go out. However, Thursday nights are pretty dope too, because if you're getting college students, for example, no one's signing up for classes on Fridays, so a lot of college students will have Fridays off, so Thursday's kind of like the start of a weekend. I used to run a monthly anime night on Thursdays, and they always had a fantastic turnout. And I've seen weeknight shows do good, because if you're in a part of town, like I'm in Orlando, so most of the people that work in Orlando, they work in the retail industry as well as the food and service industry, so a lot of times those guys are working on weekend, so a weeknight might actually be better. So that is something to keep in mind. Of course, I recommend going to the venue, checking out some shows there, because you want to make sure the sound's good, the lighting's good, that the staff runs things professionally, they actually look like they care about the show. If your sound guy is watching sports games or YouTube or whatever while the show's going on, it sounding like crap, that's definitely a sign that you should not be at that venue, because it's not a good venue that doesn't care about the shows that happen. Sometimes you might have to, I highly recommend if you go to a venue that they have their own sound guy and their own security, because the security is trained, they have to have a license. That means they know how to handle people if they cause trouble. And the other reason you want to go to a venue that has their own sound engineer, they understand all the equipment already at the venue, how it works, what's going to work and what's not going to work. If you book a venue, you have to do your own DIY PA, then so be it. Find a sound guy that you can trust. Maybe you, at your local convention, the head tech guys there have equipment of their own, and you can run sound at your venue. That'd be a good place to start. Or maybe you start hitting up these concert venues and talking to the sound guys there about maybe running sound at your show, in case you're at a venue that does not have their own sound or PA, and go from there. But I recommend going to a place that already has their own people working there, because they're going to make sure everything runs well. And this is important. Make sure your audience is comfortable with going there. There's a venue back in Orlando that was pretty prominent with the kind of shows that we were doing, and then some things happened at the venue with how things were being run, and a lot of people were unhappy. Now we can't do shows there anymore because nobody wants to go there for shows. So that kind of sucks, but it's very important to make sure that your shows are safe and fun for people that go, and they're at a place where people will feel comfortable going. And that also includes the area. There's some venues I've scouted where I've gotten recommendations to check out places, and I go there and it's in a pretty shady neighborhood where if you park there, your car might get broken into. If you're a woman or someone small, you might get attacked, and I don't want to do shows there, and nobody wants to go to shows there, so keep that in mind. Let's see. Will the venue, this is important. Some venues have websites, which is great, and they'll actually list your event on their calendar. So when people go to let's say willspub.org for Will's Pub in Orlando, they'll have a listing of all their events that are coming up, and you can also view their full calendar and see when shows are happening. They'll have a link to the tickets, etc. It's great. And of course, the parking situation is important as well. Is there parking? Do people have to fight for it? Are they sharing it with other places? Let's say the venue's in a plaza with other businesses. Will you be fighting with other businesses for that parking? Or if they're downtown, will there be garage parking, meter parking? How much is that going to cost? Because some people like free parking. Some people might have to pay for parking. So that's really important to keep in mind as well. But then you want to contact the venue. So there's different ways you can go about doing it. I start off with the email, just letting them know who I am and what I'm doing. If you've done past shows, then you could also cite attendance figures. So let's see. This one's an email I sent in 2015 about booking a show at Will's Pub, which Rob there played at that show with Under Polaris. So I let them know who I am. Not only that I'm an event promoter, but I also work as a software engineer, and I've bounce between video game development and simulation development. I have all these connections, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been running events for a couple years with Ongaku Overdrive. I let them know who our audience is and what we're looking to do and who we're looking and how many people we're looking to bring out. I cited here in the email I've done shows at other venues like the Haven, Curry Lounge, the Geek Easy, etc. And I let them know that, hey, this is going to be a good deal where people will be excited and they'll want to come out and see the show. So that was the initial email. They took a little while to get back to me. I actually had to go to the venue at one point and just let the people know that, hey, this is who I am. I sent an email out. I talked to the bartender, talked to the doorman. So I think I sent an email out to their generic website. Then I talked to the people at Will's Pub, and they let me know who to contact directly. And that's when I started getting things going. And when I sent that email out, I let them know that, hey, I talked to so-and-so at Will's Pub, like the bartender or the doorman or whatever, and they told me to talk to you about having this show on this time period. Are you guys available? And then we made things get going from there, so that worked out pretty well. And this is the Abbey. So this is when I booked the Zelda show. So we were coming off doing this Mega Man 30th anniversary show that sold out the venue that we did the show at. So this is wild. Because I sent out this email, and I let them know how many attendees we had, that we had to turn people away, which was all true, in fact. And I let them know that, hey, we want to do a Legend of Zelda show that's kind of like this show at your venue. I got a call within an hour. That has never happened before, but because we had some great success from the previous show, other venues recognize that because they want to make money and have a great thriving business of their own. So locking a venue down. So the key thing is venues operate by selling drinks. They have bars, right? So you have to convince them that people will go to your show and buy drinks. Now we all know gamers like to drink. Like there's plenty of debauchery going on this weekend to prove that. They have concerts happening at a bar downstairs, which is pretty cool. One of the cool things you can do to pitch them, like gamers like themed drinks. I do themed drinks at shows. Like let's say for the Mega Man show, for example. Ask them like, hey, here's a drink called the Mega Buster. Put this, and this in it. Just make it a blue drink, really. Or have the Proto Buster, a red drink. People are going to buy those drinks all day because they're nerds, and that's what nerds do. So it's great, and that's a great way to drive up bar sales. And you have to be persistent, but don't harass. So maybe you got to wait a few days or a week to follow up. But it's really important that you start way in advance, at least 4 months out, because if you're like a month away from the date that you want, you're probably not going to be able to find a good venue. So try to get that out as soon as possible. And of course, also offer to meet in person. That shows that you actually care to see them. Of course, when you meet in person, try to dress professionally, wear clean clothes, be well groomed, look like someone that's gonna make them money and not just some bum gamer at GameStop, because we have a stereotype, and I guess most importantly, be someone that can talk to normal people. Like we were able to talk to gamers and other nerds very easily, but most gamers are not great at talking to people outside that circle because it's hard to relate. So you're gonna have to develop social skills so you can be able to talk to people that don't care about video games or anime and just want to have a running business. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Alrighty, other things to consider. Get all the terms in writing. This is incredibly important because some venues will pull some shifty stuff. They may not tell you what the bar minimum is going to be, for example, right? And then after the show, they're like, oh, we didn't hit the bar minimum, so you actually owe us this. You want to know up front what that is. Some places, like I do the Abbey. The Abbey is where I do my big shows in the fall. They're a fairly big venue. The Proto-Men play there, for example. I do shows with like Bit Brigade, Master Sword, Mega Ran, etc. The deal we have is like $1,000 the rent. You don't want to get a venue that's $1,000 starting out, by the way. Get one that's like maybe less than $300. And you might be able to get some that are like 150 that are good, that just want to have a show because it's not a big venue. But the deal with them is like it's $1,000 to rent the Abbey, but they want to make $2,500 in drink sales. Now we've been able to pull that off just fine, but if we did not, and they had it in writing with us, if we did not, we would have to pay the difference. So let's say you made like $2,300 in bar sales, we would have to pay them an extra $200 plus the 20% in tips that the bartender would theoretically make. So keep that in mind that some bars will do that. Now, some venues will be like, if we make this drink minimum, we'll give you the venue for free. Like McCurry Lounge in Orlando, Florida, like on a weekend night, like on a Saturday, they want $800 for the bar. If we hit that, we get the venue for free. That's dope. But if we fall short of that, then we just pay the difference. So some places will do that. Or if your bar minimum sucks, they won't have you back. So that's really important too. But if your bar is great for the night, then they'll keep you coming. They'll set up future shows. So like I said, start out at least 3 or 4 months in advance. And of course, have backup plans for venues if you can't get who you initially want. Excuse me. So budgets and tech writers. So I'm going to show a couple sheets. I have budget sheets. So it's important to actually set a budget of what you want. So let's say if you're planning to have 500 people out and you're selling tickets for $10 at the door, $10 in advance, then $15 day of, right? Pretty fair. Then you're planning 50 people to come out. That means your budget's really $500. Now, if you get more people than that, that's great. But let's say your budget's $500. So that's going to break down the venue and what you're going to be able to spend on acts and advertising. So here's my budget sheet. I blacked out all the names. It's an actual show that I did a couple years ago of what each act was making, and I might have actually indicated which show it was. Someone will recognize it. But up here are the expenses. So like $400 for this guy, $200 for this guy, $75 for the openers, venues $150. I spent $20 to print posters and put them around town. I think I did a flyer set where like one side was one show and the other side was another show. So I split that in half, so half for this and half for the other show, right? Then I spent apparently $32 on Facebook ads. This show actually ended up being successful, so I spent this much for total, right? Then I have money made, so cash at the venue, card at the venue, so I do Square. By the way, get a Square if you're planning on doing shows, because people like paying at the door and they like using credit cards. If you tell them they got to go to an ATM, they'll probably not come back sometimes, at least when you're starting out. And then pretty much all the other ways I made money. So I also have Patreon factored in here. I'm not going to talk about Patreon because it's only an hour panel. But anyways, we made an $11 profit that day. Yeah, boy. So that kind of worked out. Here's a show that didn't do so well. Oh, what's up? These columns right here? Okay, so I'll explain this. So this is the total of what I spent on Facebook ads and period in general, right? I did this basically, I had 3 months I was promoting the show. So I spent $6 one month, $6 another month, and $20 a month going into the show. I'm surprised the show did so well spending that little on Facebook ads. So I spent maybe $300 on Facebook ads for Warriors of Light because I really needed that show to get a lot of people. This show I didn't really need as many people. So I think there's like a $10 show. So basically getting 140 people would have meant good times, right? This show needed about 180 people, and 80 people showed up. Oh shit. I actually legitimately thought that this show was going to do really good with who I got. I got someone who was doing really good on YouTube, someone who had a buzz in the nerdcore community, like a kind of new artist. Like the concept of this show was it's going to be acts that were emerging, right? The next generation of this, right? And I thought it was going to go really well, especially with the way we promoted it. We had videos, we had a lot of social media advertising, we had flyers that we were putting around town, posters that we were putting around town. All the acts were doing a great job of getting the word out. And for whatever reason, and I think I had some reasons in my head, but I lost a lot of money, and it was sad. So I never did that kind of show ever again. So that's that. I'm not going to say what show that is, but you can probably look it up. So here are some things to consider. So performers drive ticket sales. So we talked about it before. Have a litmus test. See how people react to acts at MAGFest. Are they enjoying them? Do they have a good social media presence where a lot of people are following them and reacting to what they're doing? Of course, that's double-sided. I had one of the acts I had a lot of YouTube videos of him performing songs, and they had lots and lots of views, hundreds of thousands. But that didn't really translate to people coming out to our show. Like, YouTube's a kind of weird nut to crack because you think, okay, a lot of people watch this guy or support this person on YouTube, right? And that's going to lead to them leaving the house and spending the money to see them in person. And a lot of the times that's not really the case. I don't know if that's because the YouTube crowd's not really one that goes outside, but that's not something to really count on. At least I learned from that experience. But it's very good to research the acts and who they'll actually want to see. Of course, once you start building a rapport with your audience, You'll know who they like and who they don't like. Maybe they'll make suggestions of their own. But I learned from this one. This was actually a show to experiment with different acts, and the experiment failed. Now, I wouldn't not book the acts, but I didn't really have any super headliners on the show. I'd like acts that would be maybe the act that goes on before the headliner. So having a strong headliners is important. So like, let's say here at MAGFest, the kind of acts that would be a headliner for your show would be a Mega Ran or a Bit Brigade or an Armed Cannon or a Power Glove or a Proto Men or a Schaefer the Dark Lord. Those are great acts to close out your show. Of course, if you're doing a show that's all local acts that doesn't cost a lot of money, fantastic. So you don't have to worry about it too much. But once you start flying out acts, then you have the huge risk. I mentioned before, one of the acts, I flew out, plane ticket, it was a West Coast flight. I spent a month deciding if I wanted to do it or not. Ended up being $460. That person wanted a $100 guarantee, but they were down to crash at my place, which was great. So that meant 56 people, assuming it was $10 show, 56 people, at least that many would have to be interested in that act to come out. We ended up with 80 people, so probably not. But everyone who went to the show had a great time, so that's good at least. But you gotta keep in mind what your audience back where you live will be down with. Maybe playing music, posting up songs on your Facebook or social media. Let's say you're connected to a lot of people in your area on social media, right? Just post some songs. See what people react to. Like, hey, what do you think of this guy, Professor Shy Guy? Or what do you think of Danimal Cannon? Just see if people react to that. If that's the kind of act that people like to see in person, then great. But if no one's responding to that, then you know to move on. Next up, tech riders. This is important. So at least a week before the show, you need to get together what everyone's going to be bringing and what they need. So a tech rider is pretty much a list of the equipment they need, the inputs that they're having in there, and what they're going to output. So I format it where who's going on, like Jack's Prody going on at 7:45. He's got a 35-minute set. He's going to be playing an accordion. He's going to need a microphone for the accordion, but also a vocal microphone so he can actually talk and interact with the crowd. He'll need a chair or stool to sit on. Or under Polaris, they'll need an auxiliary cable to play music from a tablet because that's part of their set. Auxiliary cables will be important for people that are using laptops or Game Boys, for example, right? That'll be like a 3.5 millimeter cable. Or a 1/4 inch sometimes, depending on what they're bringing. They'll need on-stage microphones, etc. They'll need mics for their amps, or they'll might need a DI box for their amps or whatever. So the acts will actually let you know what they need because they played shows before, right? So they'll know what they need in order to play on stage. So you need to send this out to the venue at least a week before the show so they get off to the sound guy, and the sound guy's like, yeah, we can do that. Or no, we can't do that. We don't have this. Like I did a show at Will's Pub. I wasn't supposed to name off any venues. I did a show somewhere. And they only had 2 DI boxes, which meant for acts using laptops, which was most of the lineup we had that night, they would have mono sound, right? Unless we had a splitter cable, which in that case, one of our acts, in fact, a veteran of the road, had a splitter cable so we could have stereo sound for the night. Imagine like having like a DJ like Ben Briggs and all his music being output to mono. That's absurd, right? So I was baffled to find that out, but luckily we made it work. Unfortunately, those are the only 2 DI boxes they had, so like in between sets it was like quiet in the room because there's no like background music that can be played in between sets while we're changing up the stage, get ready for the next act. So just got this awkward silence for like 15 or 20 minutes in between sets. It was a hell of a night. So and some acts will have stage plots. A lot of the bands actually supply this. So this is the one for Bit Brigade. They require a screen because they play video games while they perform the songs live. And they actually this one they made, so this is cool that they made this, but they let you know where everything is supposed to be. They have it labeled right here. Make sure that's in your tech rider as well. So here's some things to consider. Make sure the tech riders are easy to read. I make sure that each act is ordered by the time that they go on. So the first act will be up top. The last act will be at the bottom. That'll keep things nice and organized. I like to list out what time they're supposed to go on and how long they're supposed to play. That way the shows end and start on time. Acts end and start on time, because if an act goes late, that means you might have to cut sets short for future acts. Of course, some venues are cool with the show going a little bit late, but other venues have a curfew. So, for example, some venues downtown, after a concert goes on, they'll have a club night. That means you need to be done by a specific time, or else you'll get fined by the venue, or they won't want you to be back there because you disrupted their weekly club night, right? Or if you're having an all ages show, which I've never done that, but some cities for all ages shows have laws that require that shows have to be done by a certain time because you got minors there. So that's something to keep in mind. That means you definitely can't let shows run late because, let's say you have your headliner go on last. That means the headliner, the act that people are paying for, are going to have to cut their set short because some opener who did a bad job of keeping track of their time or didn't listen to the stage tech or the sound guy decided to keep going because they thought they were that important that they had to keep going and get all their stuff in. Of course, I mentioned before, you might have to sometimes borrow or rent equipment, like Super Guitar Bros, for example. I made a mistake the first time I booked them of flying Spirit. You never want to fly an act Spirit, especially if they have band equipment, because Spirit's cheap, right? But then you want to start bringing on carry-on luggage and baggage and all sorts of other stuff. Then Spirit's not so cheap, and it ends up being more than a normal flight. But even then, Spirit has interesting things about carry-ons. They have to be like a certain size, so they want to be cool with bringing guitars as carry-on. So we took the big risk where I was going to actually rent guitars for the show, and we spent a whole day. They explained to me the difference between steel strings and nylon strings for acoustic guitars while I'm trying to find a place to rent them from and get the correct information. And we ended up having the deal made with the place because they're going to go on the plane without the guitars. Imagine the Super Guitar Bros going guitarless for a show. So, but luckily that night, a friend of Ongaku Overdrive that played for one of the local video game bands actually happened to have those acoustic guitars at his house. So we didn't have to rent anything after all, but sometimes that happens. So make sure you book flights that can transport equipment if you're actually transporting equipment with them. Let's see, we're doing great on time. So promoting your show. So that's important. You got to get the word out. Of course, you got the venue booked. You got the headliner booked. Maybe you can figure out local acts later. Sometimes it's always good to ask the audience who they want to see for a local act because that gets them engaged. That gets people posting on your event page, and then other people see those posts due to the algorithm. Make sure your main promo artwork is done. Either you're doing it or maybe your artist supplies some dope images. Most bands in our community do not have dope images or dope photos, so you have to like maybe come up with your own. Either hire artists to do it or you do it yourself. Make sure your event page for Facebook, your ticket page, your poster, your flyers, social media graphics are all ready to go. Make sure you have a ticket page made. Brown paper tickets, Eventbrite are pretty common. I like brown paper tickets. That's what I use. Make sure you have your social media posts, event, email, newsletter, etc. If once you start having that list ready to go. And song kicking bands in town are helpful as well. So here's some great tools. Songkick. I use Songkick to let people know when I have shows because Songkick will push those to Spotify and Bandcamp. So I have a show in February. Bit Brigade is going to play at that show. I let Songkick know that the acts are playing. I go to the Bit Brigade Spotify. It lists that show right here. I go to the Bit Brigade Bandcamp. You guys can't see it because I just realized the mouse cursor's not on that screen. But on the right, tremendous. On the right, you can see that they're playing at the Abbey in Orlando, Florida on February 29th. And you can see up here in the middle screen where you have the Spotify playlist, and this is more for the phone version, not so much the web version. It lists who else they're playing with. You click on that, a fan clicks on that, and they can actually find out more about the show and buy tickets that way. And I've had people buy tickets to our shows because they found out about it on Bands in Town or by going to a Bandcamp page or Spotify page for a band they like. And what's cool about Spotify is they're going to send email blasts. So if a person's following that act, because I get emails occasionally from Spotify of acts I like, Spotify will let me know that, hey, Anna Monoguchi is coming to town in February. You better buy your ticket. I'm like, yes, sir. So bands that will be following Bit Brigade in the Orlando area got a notification email when that show went live. Bands in Town fires emails off similarly. There's an Excel format that you can download, and you just fill in all the information that's up top of all the acts, the date, the time, the ticket link, all that stuff, the description of the show, and they'll put that up on Bands in Town, so you can see all that, and they'll shoot out emails as well, and those will be included with, like, let's say, like, KRS-One's coming to town, or some, like, I don't know, Britney Spears is coming to town, but then, like, your show that has, like, Dynamo Cannon is going to be also listed in that same freaking email. It's brilliant. Flyers and posters are cool. Print media is okay. I think social media is more useful because more people will be on their phone, more people will be on their computer looking at stuff than they would going out to any kind of physical place, because nerds tend to not go outside unless it's really important. So your biggest enemy, I mean, granted, if you have conventions and other events and big movie premieres, that's one thing, but the one thing that you can be competing against when putting on a show is Netflix and video game consoles. But if people do go out, it's important to have flyers and posters at various things like comic stores, game stores. People go to conventions, that's a great place to hand out flyers. Of course, when you go in the stores, you want to drop off flyers to let the people at the counter know what you're doing, and if it's cool, to drop off flyers. Sometimes you might have to make a deal, but like, hey, if we leave flyers here, maybe we'll let you into the show for free or whatever. Some people are cool. Like, give them a couple tickets. That might be a good way to hook them in as a sponsor later when they see how cool your show is. Of course, here's some flyer designs I put in the past. Make sure that's easy to read and understand, and that's eye-catching. I did one where like one side was pretty much the eye-catching part, which is the left side, and then the part that's more information was the back side of like, here's what the show is and here's who we're going to have. Actually, the MAGFest flyers they had this year I think are pretty fantastic, so that's a good point of reference. Here's some posters I've made in the past. Well, this poster I just grabbed from Shy Guy. Professor Shy Guy sent me some photos. I was like, I can make a cool poster with this without having to like hire an artist. So I did. But some shows, I hired artists. Shout outs to Atomic Rat Studios and Brother Keo. They made cool promo like this. So they list a lineup, when the show is, where they can get tickets on OngakuOverdrive.com. So that's really important. Or they can go to, like, for Brown Paper Tickets or Eventbrite, you can have custom URLs and they can look up stuff that way. Social media is really important because if you boost your stuff correctly, then people will see it and they'll want to respond to it. So I felt like social media was a huge part of the success of my previous event, Warriors of Light, and also Mega Mania was huge because Capcom actually shared that event as well for some reason. So the idea is you want to get your audience to comment, like, love, react, retweet, share, because that's going to get more views on your stuff, and the more that's happening, the more that the algorithm is going to make sure your posts get seen by more people. I recommend looking at what your local conventions are doing and what people are reacting to. So if you have a cool con, like where I live, Holiday Met Series is a really popular convention, they do a great job of social media, so I try to emulate stuff like that as far as how I present what I'm doing. We live in the era of memes, of course, so right now, Baby Yoda is pretty popular, so don't be afraid to exploit stuff like that and make it work for what you're doing. Let's see. Target ads work if you know your audience, and I think that's going to be... Did I lose that slide? Damn. Anyways, here's another kind of content that you can share. Video content. Video content's great. So this is pretty much how I was getting people excited. This is like one of the initial videos I did to get people excited about Warriors of Light. So this is me letting them know that, hey, our theme show this year's going to be a Final Fantasy show. We're going to have a date. We're going to have a venue. This video is a minute long. The reason it's a minute long is because some sites like Instagram, for example, only let videos be a minute long at the most. So pretty much getting people excited, hey, all the cool Final Fantasy stuff that you like, oh man, Final Fantasy is so cool. Cloud, Tifa, Terra, etc. We're going to do a great show about it as well, by the way. We're going to be at a cool venue called the Abbey. It's in Orlando, Florida. Look at that cool shot that I filmed on a depressing Orlando day. It's right by Lake Eola, which is a really popular spot in Orlando, so I filmed some of these shots as well. And this part probably took too long, but I was trying to make it fit to a minute. And I got shots of like past shows, like, hey, here's all the cool stuff we've done in the past. We have artists, vendors, music, all that stuff. Cosplayers gonna be there. It's gonna be great. And that gets people excited. I already had the graphic ready to go because Jesse did a great job of doing artwork for his show. I dropped the date in there. I think after this, I list the website. There we go. OngakuOverdrive.com. We got a bunch of social media that they can follow. It's great. And let's skip the next video. I was going to do a performer spotlight video where we showcase one of the acts we have to show, but I'm looking at the time, and let's keep going. Here we go. Targeted Facebook ads. You can also do this with Google as well. So let's say you got Arm Cannon coming down. Arm Cannon does songs like Mega Man and Castlevania, so you want to boost a post or an event page that shows that Arm Cannon is coming to your town. And if your venue is 18 plus or 21 plus, you adjust accordingly. and you get people that live within 25 miles or 50 miles of your city, and they have interests. Like you have targeted interests like video games, Nintendo, PlayStation, Mega Man X, Castlevania, PAX, which is Penny Arcade Expo, or major conventions in your area. Where I live, Dragon Con and MegaCon would qualify. They look for interests that have more than 20,000 likes. I used to be able to tag MAGFest, because I want people that are interested in MAGFest in Orlando to come out to my shows. I used to be able to tag Nerdapalooza as well. Then like Facebook changed it, so those don't have enough likes, so you can't use that anymore. I'm like, well, that's pretty lame. Low amounts and short terms don't go very far, so try to make those posts go at least a week, and try to set up so it's at least $5 a day or $10 a day, even depending on how big your show is. But that gets the word out. That can get people to like your pages as well. That way you don't have to spend as much money on ads, theoretically. So here we go, day of the show. Here's a checklist. You have all your equipment packed. Does the venue and artists have the schedule of when they go on, when load-in is, etc.? Load-in should be at least 2 hours before the show. That's pretty standard. All your acts should be there 2 hours before the show to do sound check, to set up their merch tables, to load in their equipment. If they decide that they're going to sleep right before the show, you should probably not book them. I had an act that was like maybe like half an hour before the show was supposed to start, and I call him like, hey, what's the deal? Like, oh, I just woke up, I'll be there soon. I'm like, what the hell? We gotta do sound check, man. By the way, do you have change for your cash box? The bank, if you're doing a show on Saturday, closes early. Thank you. That's 5 minutes. So make sure you get your change early. Singles and fives are great. If you have a square, make sure you have that ready to go. Does everyone on your staff know their role? Oh, 10 minutes, dope. Did you send everyone who's following the event page, like people who are on your email list, or they bought tickets through Bandcamp's brownpapertickets.com or Eventbrite, or they're on your Facebook event or whatever? Did you let them all know that the show is happening today? Of course, you should let them know a week out, a month out, the day you announce the show, and also keep people engaged by posting songs, posting graphics, posting pictures of the acts, and be like, hey, we got Danimal Cannon coming down. Here's all the cool stuff we did. He worked on a video game called Just Shapes and Beats. Have you guys played that yet? All that stuff as well. Did you print out the door list? Because your door person is going to need the list of everyone who bought their tickets in advance, plus the guests, etc. Usually when I book acts, I want to bring guests out to the show. I limit it to 2 guests per act because I'm not a charity. I'm trying to like break even at least. So not everyone's getting it for free, but a few people will get it for free. That also includes press. If you have like local podcasters or people writing for your local magazine or local video game blog or whatever, you want them to cover the show, they go on the list. And those guys are great allies as well. If you have local podcasts in your area that talk about video games and anime and cartoons, and they're covering like local conventions, you want those guys on your side, because they're going to talk about your show, be passionate about it, and they go to that show and have a good time. They're going to talk about that on their podcast probably, because they like getting into stuff for free. At the show, make sure the bands are loaded in and sound checking is on time. I mentioned that before. I recommend, if you're putting out a schedule, like a master schedule, when everyone's going on, when breaks are, that before doors open, you list what times everyone's doing sound checks. So usually work backwards, where the headliner does their sound check first, and then the first act does their sound check last. That way their stuff's already on stage. If you have a band that has a drum kit, maybe that drum kit should stay on stage if the stage is big enough, especially if they're your headliner, because the drums are the worst part. I feel like the drums are the worst part of setting up any show, especially for sound check. So if you have to put that together, sound check, take it off stage, then put it back up on stage right before they go on, that's going to make your show run late probably, so don't do that. I also recommend for scheduling, have breaks be 15 to 20 minutes long in between act. And I also recommend maybe they do a quick sound check on stage before they actually play. Some acts are like, oh, I don't need to do any sound check before I go on. I did a sound check earlier. And then they sound like crap. Or maybe the band thought they could be really cute and change settings on their amplifier or whatever gizmo they have after sound check before they play, and then things sound crappy. And that has happened, and that pisses me off, because we just put a lot of work into making sure everything sounded good, and then you sabotaged everything because you didn't trust the set. You didn't trust the setup or whatever. Of course, make sure everyone's safe and having a good time. That's really important these days. Inclusivity is a big part of our nerd events, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of political views. Everyone should be able to play nice with each other and respect each other's personal space, you know? And if they're not, make it clear. Make yourself available to assist any matters of grave importance. So if there's a situation happening at your venue, you might want to let the venue manager know, or you might want to let security at the venue know, because it's probably not a good idea for you to put hands on anyone, but security at the venue or the manager is trained and they know how to handle situations like that. So if you have to have someone leave, then you might want to work with the venue staff to make sure that's taken care of in a safe manner and a professional manner, so no one's getting hit with lawsuits later. And most important, watch for crowd reactions. So if crowds are reacting strongly to an act, that means you could bring them back, because it makes sense to bring them back. But if people are just waiting for the act to end, they're checking their phones, or they're hanging out outside in front of the venue waiting for their favorite act to go on, maybe that act you brought out wasn't a great idea for booking. So keep that in mind. All right, building a community. We're getting near the end here. So the show just ended. The show is a success, hopefully. How do you follow up on that? Brown paper tickets and Eventbrite will keep track of emails. So if you have an email list, which I recommend, because people check their email pretty frequently. I check it multiple times a day. But you can incorporate those emails into your email list. So usually they'll shoot them out as an Excel sheet of some sort, and you can import it into whatever email service you have, like MailChimp or whatever. Or they can sign up on your show, or they can sign up on a form that you posted on your website or on your social media. Maybe you have a Facebook group or a Discord. It's really hard to maintain those. People lose interest real quick. Then Zuckerberg decides that we're not going to put out notifications for this group anymore. So make sure you keep that stuff in line and keep people engaged, and make sure it's a fun place for people to post. Of course, thank your fans at the event for coming out and even afterward, because they could have done anything with their time that night, but they chose to come out and see what you were putting on. So make sure you show them that you appreciate them coming out. And also take the time to actually get to know some of your fans. You don't need to know their personal life history, but know what they like, what they don't like, and stuff like that. Thank you. And things to consider. Some people aren't going to like you. It's just going to be that way. Some people at events aren't going to like other people at events. Maybe like, I used to be friends with that person, but not anymore. Or my ex is there. They'll look for any excuse to not come out to your thing, and that's fine. Whatever. It's their choice. But you should not, and you cannot police your community. What they do outside of your events is none of your business. You don't have to play parent. Once in a while, I'll get a DM like, this person said something mean about me on Facebook. I'm like, well, not my problem, man. Sorry. You have to work that out with them on your own. Here's my advice, though. But I'm not going to like intervene in that situation or tell someone they can't go to an event because they said something on social media, or they did something at a house party that had nothing to do with what I do. However, if they cause trouble at my event, then I feel the need to intervene. And of course, be good to everyone that comes through, whether they like you or not, because those people could have been anywhere else, like I said before. All right, we're going to talk about having fun. Well, this is the final part. Look at all these awesome people I worked with. I am very blessed that I've been able to organize a great team of folks, because my first team was not great. And I wish I could talk more about team building, because we're getting close to the end. But try to find people you can trust. Try to find people you can relate to that want to help you out and want your events to succeed. Maybe form partnerships. Form a group where you guys can decide what the show's going to be and who's going to come out and how everything's going to be ran. Because if everyone's invested in running the event, it's going to run very well. Don't overwhelm yourself. If you only could do 1 or 2 shows a year instead of a show every month, that's great. I think people that do shows every month, they're crazy. I want to do that. I like quarterly events. Don't get mad if your friends don't come through ever. I have a bunch of friends. I've been putting on shows for 7 years. They have been to 0 of those shows. I try not to take it personal. I'm actually really just saying this part to myself, because sometimes I'm like, are those guys really my friend if they don't support what I do or what I'm working hard on? But you can't think like that. It's bad. It's negative thinking. You got to get that out of your head. Focus on the people who come out, because those are going to be the people that are going to support you. Don't worry about people like who didn't come out, because that's negative thinking. You got to get that out of your head. Surround yourself with good people who care about what you do. I just mentioned that earlier. Look at all these awesome people that cared about my idea from years ago that I had of like, let's put on music shows for anime fans, which ended up branching out to putting on music shows for video game fans, anime fans, and comic book fans, because I ended up more or less being the only game in town back where I live. But And don't do it alone. I mean, there are times where I did shows alone, and then I got overwhelmed. Then I did a show that 250 people went to, and outside the bar staff and the sound guy was just me making sure that everything runs well. And that's when I realized I need to start bringing people back into my fold. So find people that you can trust. Find people that you can trust with your money if they're working door. Find people that you can trust with making sure they do their job and they help out, they promote, they share on Facebook that you're doing an event, they help you get out flyers to stores and whatnot. They help make sure your event runs successful, because those people are going to make sure that you guys win. And of course, it would not be an Ongaku Overdrive thing if I not plug the next thing. So I got a show coming up February 29th in Orlando, Florida. It'll be nice and warm out. It'll be at the Abbey. We're going to have Bit Brigade play Mega Man 3. We're going to have special guests, Animal Cannon, Richie Branson, and Robo Rob. Tickets are available right now. I had to get that plug in because don't miss an opportunity to let people know what you're doing. I talk to people all the time. Let them talk about what they're doing, of course. Like, hey, what have you been up to? I'm like, great. Here's what I've been up to. And I like to talk shop a lot. So it's always good to talk to people in person about what you're up to. So here we go. Next show, February 29th. It's also my birthday, so come through. We're going to have cake. I think we're out of time. We don't have any minutes left, do we? How about this? If you guys got any questions, I'll be out there and we can talk shop. I got business cards up here as well. But if you really want to get a hold of me, if you guys got any questions, I got a Twitter, Fists of the MFK. I got an email. I got business cards right here. So if you guys really have any specific questions on like how to handle things with game setups or staffing or reaching out to venues or any other ideas that you have in your head on how to put together shows, I am happy to talk to you guys because I've been doing it for a while. I've seen all kinds of situations, so I might be able to help you out. And let's grow our communities around the country so our whole scene can thrive beyond MAGFest and stuff like that. Anyways, thank you guys for coming out. I'm Kent Ward. I run on Ongaku Overdrive. I'll see you guys outside and throughout MAGFest this weekend.